I've had my choice words in the past.
That's just a reminder to myself to behave.
Okay.
That's all that is. That's just a reminder to me to where I need to behave and say.
Roger, behave.
That's right. And don't say nothing mean about Bill Altman.
No, don't say anything
Yeah.
about anybody.
That's right.
Like, how do we enhance our lives by being mean? Just reflects bad on us.
Mm-hmm. You want to hear something cool?
Yeah, I'm an old grandma. See me, old grandma.
You want to hear
Yeah,
something?
what cool thing? What cool?
Almost every single person I network with on Discord at home away from YouTube has freaking been thinking seriously about switching over to freaking Rumble.
Oh, what? Off YouTube?
Yeah.
Huh.
The only reason I really use YouTube is because not everybody's they subscribe to is on Rumble, obviously, so it's easier to set up one central platform to use. So YouTube is the most obvious.
Well, I mean, the thing that really pushed them was this freaking this Chat GTP or GPT. Like
I've tried to ignore it as co-pilot. I've tried to ignore it as much as possible.
They've got this thing now where they go in and they do reviews on people's videos.
What? Chat? I always labeled as.
They
I always labeled as automated review.
That's what they're using. They found out it's actually through GPT.
Okay, that sounds concerning. Hell, that sounds concerning for the future with companies like Amazon and eBay stuff.
Well, there's a guy that freaking I network with in gaming. His name's Rockstar. His gamer name is, and he freaking has like amazing freaking videos. He schedules them out, and on every scheduled episode, he freaking knows what day those freaking videos are coming out. Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
And like he is precise to a T. Well, freaking Darker Things did a freaking review on them and used YouTube's new recommendation thing, review thing, which is AI. And the review was freaking horrible, dude. Like they freaking they made it out like he was just a generic freaking channel and shit. And like this dude, I mean, he is literally freaking on top of his game. I've never seen a gamer do freaking stuff like he has, you know. Like he even gets in, he's into the freaking, not the NASCAR, but the N1 racing. He goes in and he narrates the race.
Wow.
Okay.
How cool.
Wow. No deep sea platform. This is the news. Blurbs going past the old deep sea radio shows.
He's amazing. The thing of it is he's actually from England. He's one of your folks.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Wow, it was so interesting. I was doing some using the AI to do some research yesterday. Yesterday was very interesting, but this morning when you put up your talking notes, I chucked it into the AI and asked it some questions. You should have heard, you should have just seen the derogatory way it was speaking about British people.
Really?
I just X'd out. I was getting so, I was like, I don't need this. I don't need you to come to me with attitude. I was, it was just GPT 3.5. It was just the old one, just that old, And I didn't bother to prime it or give it any links. I didn't bother. So it's on me, it's on me that I got bad responses. But damn, I have not seen that bias before, because I've always been prompting it and priming it and leading what I want. So this time it's just a real hectic day today. Callum had chemo yesterday and he was very, very sick last night. So I haven't had time to prepare. So I'm sorry, Roger.
Oh, don't worry. Don't worry. Mark's having a bad day too.
Like I said, I've just woken up in the last hour.
Oh, right. Some days are like that, eh?
we're all just kind of recuperating. I got on there last night with Jaffe, and I wanted to do it because freaking he went AWOL for a while, so I wanted to make sure he was okay. But it was real hectic, you know what I mean?
The show, Jaffe's show.
We'll get him.
Technical issues at the start, echoing. Then it was just a fairly random show last night. It was fairly random.
See, I get into that shit though. I mean, I really enjoy when freaking people,
yeah.
you know what I mean?
Spontaneous, I think, is the word I'm looking for.
These guys, man, are
right.
It's like last night, freaking.
Did what we did. We had.
Okay. It was like last night whenever they were talking about that shit about freaking, I'm not into freaking editing, I'm all just into live. I'm like, why the hell would you limit yourself like that? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whenever they were talking about that shit about freaking, I'm not.
If you've got an issue with a live, with the recording, then you can edit it and re-upload it.
Dude, I love my edits just as much as I love my freaking live stream, you know. And actually,
didn't I make an argument with you, Roger, back in Generals, a couple of months ago now, about the difference of having a recorded version.
Yeah, you did. You still bitch at me. You still bitch at me. You're now at the point where you've progressed to frickin' comments and making frickin' describing shit in my frickin' description section on the YouTube channels and stuff.
Okay.
So not as much, but you're still doing it. It's like you need to say something. I would do that in an English accent, but frickin' apparently I'm not good at it. So. I'm better at doing Bob Dub's voice.
Remember, there's many English accents. Can you do Liverpudlian? Scottish?
I tried to do Rapid's voice, and they laughed at me. They literally freaking laughed at me because Rapid Glitch, he's Scottish, and he fucks up words like you wouldn't believe. Like the Scottish people just do not know how to freaking speak proper English at all. You know.
Should listen to the Welsh, dude.
And he starts talking, and I'll pick on him and try to talk Scottish, or I did, and then when I did, freaking Zach and him were on there, and they just straight up freaking laughed at me, dude. I'm like, are you serious? Is it that bad? And they're like, yeah, dude, that was like the worst freaking Scottish accent I've ever heard.
British people are good with hyperbole though, Roger. You must understand.
Yeah, I know. You guys actually have a better schooling system, I guess, is because like
we used to.
These days, yeah. Used to.
Okay, I'm gonna mute real quick, and then I'm gonna go get some coffee and smoke a cigarette and come back.
Okay.
It's like 5 minutes until time, so if you guys want to do something.
Okay, I'll go to the loo quickly. All right, see you soon.
All right.
I could focus quite quickly. So that's better. Mm. Interesting.
Oh dear. Sorry, guys. Sorry.
That's true. We haven't started yet, I think.
Oh, good. Okay. Phew. We've been having some difficulty with electricity. We were without electricity for 6 hours yesterday. And
Wow.
yeah, I'm not used to it. It was normal in Africa. I was like, oh, well, what can you do? This is Africa. But in New Zealand, it's like, how can they let the power go out?
I think I've suffered from one power thing for about 3 hours within the last 2 years.
Oh, wow.
I figured I'd skip the coffee.
Power cuts it. Unusual.
I figured I'd skip the coffee. I freaking had just enough time to smoke my cigarette and get back on time. So now, let me go ahead and do freaking the countdown and stuff and get started. I'm gonna do a little bit of an extra introduction because we are just starting out with the show on DLive. I'm gonna point out what we're about, and we're not into the whole criticizing.
Can you use OBS to go directly to DLive?
Yeah, Yep,
Okay.
I'm doing it through OBS. So,
Cool.
so 3, 2, 1, now. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Roger's Real-Time Talk Show event. Today, we are joined by Mark Edworthy and Bob Dub. I'd like to welcome you guys back, and before we get started, I'd like to also bring up the fact that not only are we streaming on Rumble, Odyssey, YouTube, but now we've started doing it on DLive as well. So, with that being said, I want to kind of go over for what we're about here at Roger's Real Time Talk Show event for the people who watch on DLive, if they ever do. I don't know for sure, but if they ever do, this is what we're about, you know. With Roger's Real Time Talk Show event, we were all freaking talking about it, me and Mark and Tan even, and you know, this was about almost a year ago, and me and Mark and Tan, you know, we were talking about how politics has gotten so fucked up that everybody is, when they get on the internet, it's always bashing this person or bashing that person or how bad this frickin' group is and that group is, and basically politics is turned into frickin', you know, a load of shit is what I take of it, and that's how I say it. But you know, and we were having this conversation about, you know, we should do. No, it was actually after that, because I've refused to do politics for the longest time because of that fact, and that's when frickin' Tan actually told me that frickin' we needed to do it, and I said, well, I'll do it if we did this, and that's when we got in the conversation, and that's when we come up with the idea of, why don't we make a frickin' show where it's not bashing Donald Trump, or it's not bashing frickin' Biden, or frickin', you know, this Canadian guy up in frickin' Canada, or this guy over in England. Let's talk about real politics and the things that are supposed to be discussed when it's about politics. That's how it started, and that's how we've pretty much been doing it. We also incorporate historical politics. That's a big issue, I think, in today, is a lot of people aren't really educated to what is really going on when it comes to these political parties and the history of politics, you know, so that's where that really sticks out. Did I explain it good, guys?
Brilliantly.
Okay. Yeah, your culture, or what is it, cult of celebrity. After all, that's what the Biden, that's what modern politics turned into, the cult of celebrity.
Cult of celebrity. Now, Monty Python is still the top-notch comedian of today. Even if people want to know what politics is really about, go watch old episodes of Monty Python.
Do
You agree with that, Mark Edworthy? You're not a Monty Python fan, are you?
I could think of other things. I'm thinking things like Yes Minister and Yes Prime Minister, and Not the 9 o'clock news, and all those other British stuff of the 70s.
Monty Python was the best, though. It was the best.
Depends on what you mean by best. Define best.
Well, for an English show, it was the best. It was.
Okay. Being of English descent, I can disagree with you and say there's a big variety of 1970s political comedy.
Okay. So now, I think that without mentioning Benny Hill, I think we should get on to a little bit more on it. Now, just to go back into a little review on stuff, what happened was last year we covered the United States, and this year we decided we're going to cover England. We've already finished up on the socialists in England and what took place there. We mentioned the anarchists and then we were wanting to get into the conservative now, and we started up with classical conservative last week, and this week we're continuing with that. And during this time we were talking about, well, we also need to talk about colonialism, and because we'd had conversations with Bob Dub and Otto about colonialism and everything, and I was, me and Mark actually were thinking about like doing an episode where we break it up, but then I realized that I almost made a mistake last week by just overlooking freaking Edmund Burke, and he was in the readings that I did last week, and he was conservative back during the beginnings with the Whig Party. So I went through and I checked these notes out about Edmund Burke, and I found out a lot of interesting things. So I decided that I'm going to start out there, and we're going to discuss him, because he actually was pretty significant when it comes to English frickin' politics. You know, he was a Whig member, but at the same time, there's a good chance he inspired what people in England consider anarchism. Anarchism. A lot of people. Well, let me just go ahead and read it, and then we'll get on with it like normal. Now, do you guys want to do the round table stuff like we've been doing, or do you just want to leave it open? Because there's just three of us. I mean, it's up to you.
Okay,
too.
can leave it open if you want.
You want to leave it open?
Feel free to speak.
How about you, Bob Dub?
Sure, that's fine with me to leave it open. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, episode 20 is going. I really don't like doing that either. I just don't like mentioning the episodes because, like. But here we go. We're gonna start out with Edmund Burke. Now, Edmund Burke, he's an Anglo-Irish Whig statesman, or he was, and philosopher, whose political principles were rooted in moral natural laws, and the Western heritage is the one of the first expositors of traditionalist conservatism. Although Toryism represented an even earlier conservatism, which was more primitive. A more primitive form of the traditionalist conservatism. All right, Burke. So Toryism was an earlier version of conservatism compared to the Whigs. Is what I'm making of that, and that's what they're basically saying. That was kind of messed up how it's written, but now Burke believed in prescriptive rights, which he considered to be God-given. He argued for what he called ordered liberty, best reflected in the unwritten law of the British constitutional monarchy. Now, that's something I do want to discuss, and the whole...
did you say
unwritten law
of
the British constitutional monarchy.
Okay. Sorry, I thought you said the unwritten constitution.
But see, the one thing that sticks out to me is the words God-given. Now, that also falls back into the United States Constitution with the rights that are given to Americans, okay? And I mentioned it in, I think, last episode where I said with our Constitution it says our rights are God-given, and no man has a right to take those rights away from us as long as we are doing the next right thing and we're not breaking laws, you know what I'm saying?
During Tony Blair's tenureship or UK government, there was a big emphasis on rights and responsibilities, and there was it was made out that there was confusion over the two terms, and everybody was confusing rights with responsibilities in effect.
Well, see,
who gives you the rights? Does the government or does God?
See, that's the thing that I was always taught about. Like with sovereignty, you have to understand what sovereignty is. Okay, sovereignty is freaking all of us, the people. Now, I know that freaking that's something that we do need to discuss with Bob Dub, and if we could ever get Mr. Robot on here, we could talk to him too about it, because he mentioned something that was interesting about Australia and their supposed constitution. It's supposed to be the sovereignty of the Queen that's written on their constitution. So when they say the sovereignty of the Queen, what is it that they're talking about?
And Canada's constitution does also include that, or words to that effect.
So that and see, here in the United States, freaking the sovereignty is the collective group here in the United States. Every person in the United States consists of the sovereignty, so we're responsible. So when the government is acting out and they're freaking overextending their power, it's our responsibility to say, look, you're overextending your powers, and we're the ones who are supposed to take that power back. And I think a lot of
I don't know, our government should always be reminded of about Charles II.
Well, when it comes to
it's
Charles,
necessary. It's necessary. Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead and elaborate on that, because like you said, you got to be reminded.
Charles I.
Tell us the story, big man. You're up.
Of the English Revolution or the English Civil War.
Say it.
About King Charles I losing his head.
Oh, you're talking about Cromwell.
In this country.
Yeah, you're talking about Cromwell.
Yeah.
Yeah, your arch enemy is what it is. See, and that's the thing that gets me about English. The English really think that frickin' Cromwell was a horrible person, but they really don't look at what was taking place during that time period. You know what I mean?
True. Yeah, it was a product of his time.
You know, and he had
like all of us, I suppose.
He had just frickin' gone through two revolutions England had. Alright, this was the second revolution, and frickin' it was supposed to be a breakaway from frickin' the monarchy. You know, and that's what this man stood for.
It wasn't a breakaway, it was meant to be, more of a reminding that the populace can match up if and when the time opportunity is right.
So, you know, and my whole point is these same people came back and they freaking wanted to make him king. You know what I mean? They were like,
yeah. Well, remember that the religious wars, the Protestants against the Church of England war, that technically, arguably, still is happening with the Irish.
Now we actually,
Indeed.
we actually have some of that stuff that reflects when it comes to Edmund Burke. I really should have researched this a lot further last week than what I had time to do, but I was able to get in here and I dug up some really good stuff here, because like this guy, like I said, he really was, he was very important to frickin' English frickin' politics. So let me read more of this, okay? So he also fought for universal ideas that were supported by institutions such as the church, the family, and the state. He was a fierce critic of the principles behind the French Revolution, and in 1790 his observations on its excesses and radicalism were collected in reflections on the revolution in France, and that was his book, I believe. In Reflections, Burke called for constitutional enactment of specific concrete rights and warned that abstract rights could be easily abused to justify tyranny. American social critic and historian Russell Kirk wrote, "The Reflections burns with all the wrath and anguish of a prophet who saw the tradition of Christendom, and the fabric of civil society dissolving before his eyes." Now, Burke's influence was felt by later intellectuals and authors in both Britain and continental Europe. The English Romantic poets Samuel Taylor Coleridge, William Wordsworth, and Robert Southey, as well as Scottish Romantic author Sir Walter Scott, and the counter-revolutionary writers Francois René de Chateaubriand, Louis de Bonald, and Joseph de Maistre. I'm hoping I got those right. We're all
most of them.
were all affected by his ideas. Burke's legacy was best represented in the United States by the Federalist Party and its leaders, such as President John Adams and Secretary of the Treasury Alexander Hamilton. Now, I have my problems with both frickin' President Adams. Well, not Adams as much as Hamilton. I don't agree with a lot of things that Hamilton frickin' did historically. I think that creating a frickin' bank, a federal bank. Hamilton was the one that was really big on trying to frickin' create like a bank like the Bank of England. Okay. And that was something that I really did not agree with. Like, he was one of the reasons why we eventually have the Fed now. So it's because of his beliefs in consolidating the banking systems and stuff.
But it was a nationalist party, wasn't it? The Federalist Party were nationalists.
Yeah, they
right.
Both of the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists were both nationalists. What made it different was the Federalists wanted to consolidate government, like we were talking about with Otto. Okay, they wanted to consolidate it, and John J. McCoy is the one who frickin' created the Department of Justice, and then they came along and they created the Senate. Whereas before they didn't have the Senate, they just had Congress, the House of Representatives. So, like in England, it would be like your Parliament, and you have frickin' the lower
the House of Commons and the House of Lords.
Yeah. So the House of Lords. Imagine not having the House of Lords and having just the House of Commons.
British people can't imagine that, Roger. There's
been talk about this for the last, must be coming up to 2 decades now in the UK about removing the House of Lords or reducing it. In fact, I think there is a bit of legislation actually in the rounds to actually reduce the House of Lords after the next general election, after next month.
But not do away with it.
Who knows?
Not do away with it. Would the British be able to even cope with that? Yeah, just reduce it. Yeah.
No. Why do you guys think they wouldn't be able to cope with it? That's a good question. Go into that.
Well, in my opinion, the British, the old idea of being British was an idea that you only strive for the best of everything. And I think it's really interesting how the British, if you look at the history of the emergence of religion in the West, you'll see that the spread of Christianity spread all the way through Europe until it came to Britain. And then Britain took Christianity and refashioned it to suit the British outlook on life. So British people don't fit in with what's going on around them. British people change things. And they call this God-given right. And it's, in my opinion, this just in my point of view, right? And I remember I'm old, so I'm talking maybe 40 decades ago. This is four decades ago.
Well, stop giving away your age.
Yeah.
You're a lady. You're a lady.
I'm
Lady.
Thank you.
Only 21.
Only 21.
So
So the thing is, with this way of thinking, this British way of thinking, which then spread out from this tiny island and took its way of thinking to the whole world. But what was the point of British way of thinking was that it was important to strive to get to the top of the hierarchy. It was a good thing to work really, really, really hard and be very, very successful. And once you've done that, then to reach out to the people around you and try and uplift them as well.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what monarchy is based on. Monarchy isn't really, in Britain, isn't really based on somebody with power lording it over the people. It's more just a outworking of this basic fundamental attitude that we have to strive for this God-given potential within us, within life. Yeah. So that's why I think that lords can't go away, because the lords are just the next layer underneath the monarchy. If you take that away, you destroy the hierarchical thinking of the culture.
Yeah.
But that's just my opinion.
What do you think about that, Mark?
Yeah, I can see a fundamental change in British English culture. I would say, I don't know, Scotland is interesting when it comes to parties like SNP, even though the Scottish National Party has got a lot of issues in it. But yeah, for that sort of attitude, and not so much the Welsh. And
not so much the Welsh.
You know, if old John's watching this, he's just gonna be so upset with you, Mark. Frickin', he's.
I'm using generalizations.
Okay, I just wanted to point that out. I mean, he by the way, he did say that frickin' his kid finally was able to go to school, so he might be able to participate more.
Cool.
Wow, cool.
So
that would be awesome.
That's nice.
It's a vacation for him. I know it's been pretty rough and everything. He says that they got break coming up for another 6 weeks or something like that. But I told him, you know what, be grateful for this.
July.
Yeah.
In Wales, I think. The second week of early second of July.
But I told him, I was like, be grateful for that, because he was like talking about he only had like 4 or 5 weeks. I was like, at least you got 4 or 5 weeks.
Actually, summer holidays in England, Scotland and Wales has always been 6 weeks.
Yeah.
It has always been, or as long as I can remember.
So
it's quite a long time, really.
Here's where it gets interesting. This is what I almost missed, okay? And this relates to anarchism. It relates to frickin' what Bob Dub was just talking about. And it relates to frickin' a lot of things I didn't notice. Now, it's called the Vindication of Natural Society. Now, this was written by Burke, okay, and it's a vindication of natural society or a view of the miseries and evils arising to mankind from every species or artificial society, is a work by Edmund Burke, which was published in 1756. It is a satire of Lord Bolingbroke's deism. Burke confronted Bolingbroke not in the sphere of religion but civil society and government, arguing that his arguments against revealed religion could apply to all institutions. So close to Bolingbroke's style was the work that Burke's ironic intention was missed by some readers, leading Burke in his preface to the second edition in 1757 to make plain that it was a satire. Nonetheless, this work was considered by William Godwin to be the first by William Godwin to be the first literary expression of philosophical anarchism. Now, philosophical anarchism is an anarchist school of thought which focuses on intellectual criticism of authority, especially political power and the legitimacy of government. The American anarchist and the socialist Benjamin Tucker coined the term philosophical anarchism to distinguish peaceful evolutionary anarchism from revolutionary variants. Although philosophical anarchism does not necessarily imply any action or desire for the elimination of authority, philosophical anarchists do not believe that they have an obligation or duty to obey any authority, or conversely, that the state or any individual has a right to command. No, I heard of
Isn't that what a lot of what C.K. Chesterton was writing about in the early 20th century?
There's a good chance.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of this, like we've had conversations with Bob Dub about anarchism, and she really does not like the anarcho-syllabism, blah blah blah.
The mixtures.
Yeah, and you can hear it in her voice when she's yelling at us how horrible they are.
That's a yell.
But when you read this sounds more like Bob Dub. You know what I mean? This sounds more like you. This is the kind of stuff I believe that you're talking about when you talk about anarchism. So, with that, I want you to talk.
Okay. I think that I agree with you. I think that a lot of what the anarchists talk about is theory, and I do think that it is the basic underlying theory is that we, the people, are the country. It's not the politicians who say, as a country, we believe this and that, because who are they? Who gave them any right? The power of any community is in the people who participate in that community. And so to be able to participate constructively in a community, you have to take responsibility for yourself. And so you need, like this is why they talk about peaceful evolutionary anarchism, is that you and your family and your friends and your community need to be doing things right. Because if it doesn't come from inside of you, you can't impose these obligations onto a community. It's something that you have to step into voluntarily and take on that burden of being bigger than just just you and your family. Yeah. So I think for me, it's very, very, very much an intellectual point of view, which is why I disagree with mixing it with these other things which are practical applications, or attempting to be practical applications.
Now, with what you're saying right there, though, I mean, from my point of view and the way I'm reading all this, is like you actually have a bit of conservatism in yourself as well. Like it does lean more towards the conservative side, because like the way that they explain it with this guy, okay, like his morals and stuff like that, that's what he stood by, you know what I mean? And like I've listened to you talk, and I know one thing: you love the Queen. You know, you love.
Queen is dead.
Well,
you
love the frickin' the Queen. You love the King and stuff like that, and
no, Roger,
and stuff like that.
No, I don't. I believe that the monarchy.
What do you think this is? 1915?
Hold up now. Let her finish. I got her stirred up for a freaking reason, Mark.
You did. You got me to disagree with you. That's quite a skill there, OG.
Okay, so go ahead and finish.
What do I say?
You said you don't. You don't love the Queen.
I don't love the Queen. I don't love any of these things. I am aware that there are institutions which are the result of people attempting to bring structure out of chaos on planet Earth. I'm not a monarchist. I'm not a royalist. I respect them, I acknowledge them, but they're human beings. They're just as good as you and me, and they take off their pants to poop. So I don't have any great love and worship of them. It is, and it's something that needs to be taken into consideration. But there we go. That's.
She just said poop. Did you hear that?
I said poop.
She said poop.
Mr. Robot always accuses me of being a monarchist.
Oh.
He's done that quite a few times. But yeah, I got much of same feelings as yourself. As far as the moment is concerned, long live the King.
Indeed.
Now you gotta understand. I've been finding out too when I've been reading this. Like there was a reason, freaking, for the whole thing with the Tories and the Whigs. Okay, like I understand it a little bit better now. Okay, like let me put it to you this way, because the last time we had this conversation, I was having a hard time understanding a lot about the conservative thing. Now, Tories were conservative, and there was a reason why the Irish and the Scottish made them freaking out to be the way they did when they called them Tories, because Tories, from what I can tell, were the freaking thieves. They were the robbers. They were the dirty dogs. You know what I'm saying? And this story that he wrote, okay, he was talking about the Tories, because freaking the way the Tories were behaving, okay. In this next one, it's the impeachment of Warren Hastings. It really gives you an idea of what was going on within the Tories. And today in the United States, we commonly call them Canadians. Okay, but okay.
Oh, didn't Conservatives become Tories during the Jacobite era wars? Obviously, the dislike of England.
The Jacobite movement was actually a big thing that was being mentioned with a lot of this. And I mean, I can pull up the Jacobites too later on, and we can go over that, because that was actually something.
I think we need an entire episode. I think you would need an entire episode to cover on,
But you know, I was really amazed though how all of this related to not just conservatism in England, but it also spanned into colonialism. You know what I mean? Because the Tories were freaking bastards. I mean, seriously, they were bastards. The way they treated the colonialists was just insane.
Yeah, but it could have been worse. We could have been the Dutch or the Portuguese. They were, or even the Spanish.
Well,
no offense to anybody of those countries.
I'm just talking about your own colonialists. You know what I'm saying? Like within the British Empire, they had very little. They had disregard for freaking colonialists. You know what I mean? The impression I got from the Tories were they freaking went out and they conquered these territories. They freaking sent these merchant ships to these colonies.
The world at one point.
They sent these to these colonies with freaking the colonialists, and those colonialists, they were supposed to just get off the boats, do what they were told, and they had no rights whatsoever.
Depends on what country. Remember, a lot of Latin America was found by soldiers.
Well, let me get to the impeachment of Warren Hastings, and we'll kind of bring some light to that. But let me, I'll finish off on the philosophical anarchism, and we'll get to that. So the philosophical anarchism is a component especially of individualist anarchism. The scholar Michael Frieden identified 4 broad types of individualist anarchism. He says the first is the type associated with William Godwin that advocates self-government with a progressive rationalism that includes benevolence to others. The second type is egoism, which is most associated with Max Stirner. The third type is found in Herbert Spencer's earlier predictions and in that of some of his disciples, such as Wordsworth, Donisthorpe, or who foresee in this scene the redundancy of the state in the source of social evolution. The fourth type retain. Did that make any sense to you guys?
Yes.
Okay.
Total sense.
Okay. So the fourth type retains a modern form of egoism and accounts for social cooperation through the advocacy of the market, having such followers as the American individualist anarchist Benjamin Tucker and the green anarchist Henry David Thoreau. Now, Henry David Thoreau, I know about him from recovery because I did a lot of research sobering up, and he was a part of a group called the Transcendentalists, and I asked you guys if you've ever heard of them, and
yes.
Bob Dub said she didn't know at the time, but
I didn't know at the time. Well, yeah.
He was one of these people that frickin' walked away from civilization, and he lived out in the wild, and he was back in those days. He would have been what most Americans called Indian lovers. He supported freaking Indian rights and stuff of that nature. So, and he was a part of the Transcendentalist movement, which was a part of Emerson, Waldo Emerson, and all of them. They were big on all that. So, but that's who they're talking about with him. And if you guys are interested in that transcendentalism, you can check it out. It is pretty interesting, but I just wanted to mention that. Now these 3 or 4 types, is there anything that you guys want to talk about with these 4 types of anarchy?
I think that it's interesting, this thing where we're talking about William Godwin's ideas, that it says progressive rationalism that included benevolence towards others. That is reminding me of what Otto's been saying the last couple of times, where he's been talking about how such and such a person wasn't popular because his gates weren't greasy enough. You know?
Yeah.
You had to have greasy gates on your mansion, where you handed out greasy food to the peasants. And so this
there's actually a saying. There's a saying in the UK to grease somebody's hands,
yes.
to take money. Yeah.
Yeah.
See,
Well,
all you intellectual people know that stuff. It's like freaking.
Oh,
I didn't
not
know
that
that.
we're intellectual. It's just that we come from this different culture.
It's a fairly common. It's a fairly common British sort of, or used to be.
Yeah.
But,
You see, well, how do we know anymore what's still going on in Britain? I mean, okay, you do because you're there, but I mean, it's changed so much. Like the thing that I think of as British culture, I don't know if it exists anymore, actually. So yeah.
As Wordsworth said.
Now, it's pretty cool that you're bringing that up, because now we can come to the impeachment of Warren Hastings. Yeah, he was the first governor general of the Bengal presidency, and the impeachment was attempted between 1787 and 1795 in the Parliament of Great Britain. Hastings was accused of misconduct during his time of in Calcutta, particularly relating to mismanagement and personal corruption. The impeachment prosecution was led by Edmund Burke and became a wider debate about the role of the East India Company in the expanding empire of India. According to historian Mithi Mukherjee, the impeachment trial became the site of a debate between two radical opposing visions of Empire One, represented by Hastings, based on ideas of absolute power and conquest in pursuit of the exclusive national interest of the colonizer, versus one represented by Burke of sovereignty based on a recognition of the rights of the colonized. Now that goes into what I was talking about, you see. So and you have to understand that frickin' Warren Hastings, he was a frickin' one of those frickin' Tory bastards, you see.
Okay, so I need to just jump in here and say that he was a bastard.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And then he was a Tory, and it's very unfortunate that he was a Tory, but he wasn't a bastard because he was a Tory. He was a bastard because he was a bastard. And he brought disrepute into the name of a group of people who were trying to be honorable people. Like Burke believed in the sovereignty of the native people and the rights of the colonized. That is a good thing to believe in. Being corrupt and mismanaging and lack of responsibility, that's not the way. That's nobody to admire in any way.
Right.
So it's all about this personal honor, that you yourself have to be the best version of yourself that you can be.
Right. Now,
there's no way to govern that. There's no way to impose that on people. It has to come from inside you. Sorry, Roger.
Now, remember too, I did mention that there's two examples here. Okay. Now, frickin'
right.
The Empire One, represented by Hastings, was based on the idea of absolute power and conquest. Now, this is what I'm finding that the Tories actually followed. It was about frickin' absolute power and conquest, and about national interests instead of that of the colonizer. Yeah, it's the national interest of the colonizer is how they put it, versus the frickin' rights of the colonized. So the colonizer was more important than the colonist, because frickin' that's what was the most important thing, And I found out too that that Burke was also a proponent against frickin' the high taxation that England was imposing on frickin' the United States as well, the colonies here in the United States. He didn't agree with the revolution, but he did disagree with the high taxes. So that right there tells me that frickin' all of these English people that think that that's a load of crap
there was quite a movement, I think, in the Tories, the Whigs at the time, that took that approach.
I think it was really it was where the Whigs was breaking away from the Tories, the Tory ideas.
Yeah, it's where they were separating.
That's what I do make out of it, and I was really amazed by going back over this, because it really breaks it down and kind of tells you what's going on here. So maybe that Tea Party was a good thing after all. Maybe. And I think freaking people like Burke may have been something that also eventually led into the Constitution here in the United States. From what it sounds like.
I suppose when the Bill of Rights, the Act of Rights was 1668, 69, isn't it? So.
Well, John Locke, when did he do all his writings? Because that had a huge.
I think that was a century before.
Yeah.
So
he could have.
I think.
He could have. He could have been influenced by John Locke too, because that God-given right thing is definitely a Lockean influence. That's definitely John Locke. Sovereignty.
Luffyism.
Yeah, Luffy. Did you say Sufi?
I was a Luther. No, Luther.
Okay, I just wanted to double check we aren't talking about the Sufi. Okay, so with the trial, it didn't sit continuously, and the case dragged on for 7 years. When the eventual verdict was given, Hastings was overwhelmingly acquitted. It's been described as probably the British Isles' most famous, certainly the longest political trial. So, that right there, when I was reading through this information, though, it kind of opened it up what was going on there on the English side, because I really never dove that deep into the English. I knew that they were horrible freaking people.
No bias there at all, Roger. I think that it's very interesting, because I don't think that the British set out to be the British or the colonialists. I don't think that they set out to conquer the world or to colonize it. I don't think any of the things that happened were a plan that the British decided on. It was just a consequence of that structure of a society. The society became unbelievably successful. They built boats, and they wanted to see what was on this other side of the water. And off they went. Then they came back and told people, and people were like, woo, let's go see. And they all jumped off. So I don't think it was a movement.
Actually, a lot of it in the 16th, 17th century was all about combating the Spanish, anyway. So if the Spanish were going there, we had to follow them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they were all cousins. I mean, the British and the Germans and the Spaniards and the French, they were all families and tribes that were all related to each other and had these massive histories where, my great-great-great-grandfather did this, and that person was married to this and this king went there. It's a hugely complex group of people.
Well, you guys were all hoodwinked, okay? And back then, especially, because like everybody believed that frickin' these royal families were somehow connected to frickin' one family in the whole.
Right? No.
You know what I mean?
That's a popular.
Well, I mean, we know better now, but back then, during that time period, they honestly believed that. You know what I mean? They believed that.
Actually, no. Actually,
they believed that you're. They believed that the kings and queens were all cousins and freaking they came from one single family, and that the only way that a king.
I don't buy that. I don't buy that they all came from a single family. It was sort of during the late 19th century of Germany, when Germany became a single country.
Who was the first ruler of the Holy Roman?
Russia. I remember Tsar the Third was a.
Who was the first ruler of the Holy Roman Empire? Not the Roman Empire, the Holy Roman Empire.
Constantine, I decide.
No, you're thinking the Roman Empire. I'm saying the Holy Roman Empire.
Christian.
Yeah.
So Christian. So that would be Constantine.
The
4th century, was it?
Yeah.
4th century, 5th century.
4th century, I think.
I can probably do it. I think my OBS is actually working right now, but I can probably search it out without messing it up. Okay, I'll do first emperor
The first
of
empire.
the Holy Roman. Yeah, there we go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It was Charlemagne.
Oh, okay.
So.
Well, you start with a C.
It wasn't an empire. It wasn't an empire at the time. It was a republic. It was a republic.
Now,
Western one.
Charlemagne, according to the European freaking lore, was the first emperor, and he had sons, and he split his empire up amongst his children, and his children continued to intertwine with one another and marry. So freaking you had to be related to one another in order to rule, and the more family members they had, the frickin' more they broke up the areas until you had frickin' France, you had Germany, you had all of England, you know, because Charlemagne was the great king who ruled over them all. And that's the mentality. See, that's what I want to get back to that. That was the mentality that frickin' England and most of Europe frickin' had. They were hoodwinked into believing that shit was true, and they did. They believed it 100%.
Well, I'm not sure if they believed it 100%. There were probably factions who did believe it. But also remember that the mythology of the time talked about the Garden of Eden and Adam and Eve.
Mm-hmm.
So there was this idea that we were joined as humanity. The Garden of Eden, of course, represents earth and nature, and Adam and Eve represent man and woman. And so it was the story, this first story of humanity was that men and women were together with God on planet Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of structure of thinking you can see it coming through the attitude of the people through the ages. But I think that it's really important to remember that the people knew the difference between their religious ideas or their spiritual ideas and the political history of their people. And it's really hard going back through the history books and teasing out those different notions, but they definitely are there within the people. They had a political understanding of the world and a spiritual understanding of the world. And those two things sort of overlapped, but didn't always. I think it's important to not just say they believe this, because there were things that they believed in different proportions to each other.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you, because like I need to take that into consideration when you realize, like, we were just talking about John Locke too.
Yeah, on the opposite side you've got the Roman Church, which became and still is extremely influential up to the Enlightenment.
Yes.
Everything was written in Latin, so
right.
Yeah.
It was when the Gutenberg, it was when the Gutenberg press was invented. So when things like the Bible was translated into English during Henry VIII's time.
Now I didn't mention it in the talking points, but like what I was reading about Burke too was he was wanting to let off on the whole subjugation that was going on with the Catholic Church in England. He actually wanted to lighten all that, and just from, I've always loved history, so I knew a little bit about the Catholics and how they were treated even in the colonies here in the United States, okay? And there was a big movie. There were movements that just did not want the Catholics in the colonies here in the United States. Was just, they were all anti-Catholic. The Catholics didn't even get into the United States until well after the Revolutionary War. So Burke was one of the first ones that did that.
In the US, isn't just mainly the Bible Belt? Well, there are a large population of Catholics, but in the rest of the country, it's very on the lower numbers, lower percentage. We
went towards more of what you guys considered extremists, like all of your extremist religious groups that you guys didn't oppose or agree with got sent over here. So okay, like they call them pilgrims here in the United States, but what they were is, in England, they were considered religious extremists. Okay, now the pilgrims, they were actually
there was actually situations when the Irish were moved over because of that, maybe to Australia, either for that particular reason, because obviously the Irish issue.
Now the Australians, they were all freaking prisoners and inmates and stuff. So you got to remember that was they were a prison planet. That's where Alex Jones would be right now. If freaking he was living back then, he'd be on the prison island of Australia.
Well, to get to Australia, you had to be so poor and so hungry that you took horrific risks in order to feed your family.
Remember,
so you had to be absolutely destitute.
Even stealing bread at the time would have been considered as an execution or a as Dickens demonstrated, the society, there was a big wave of poor and
Well, from what I've read too about the gypsies, because I was really curious about them, there's been a lot of gypsies that were actually shipped over to Australia, and they don't even know they're gypsies now. They have no clue.
Yeah. You are talking about Romanians.
Well, gypsies. They like to call them Romanians. Yeah, I do find
there's a couple of different meanings to the word gypsy. Well,
there's three different sects of gypsies, and a lot of people don't realize that. Like, the Romanian gypsies are the Roma.
The Roma.
Romani.
Yeah, and then there's two other ones besides them. Yeah. But they were displaced too, and like you guys, what you call roadmen, those were gypsies. Those still are gypsies in England.
In the Western, Eastern Empire, not in.
No, I mean in England.
Areas in place in England.
Yeah, that you guys actually still still have like gypsies there. You couldn't get rid of them.
No, gypsies has been used, especially in the 80s, as a very political term, meaning anybody that's looking for city land to stay on.
Yeah.
It has been a very divisive word in the UK in the 70s and 80s.
I know they've clumped circus people in with the gypsies over there. I've heard of that. Like, that's where the travelers and the frickin' circus people got all clumped together, and carnies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, or as we would say in the US,
You know.
Well, I think that these days they would be called transient or homeless.
It's all who you talk to, though. Like, they don't consider themselves homeless. You know what I mean?
No, they don't. But lots of homeless people don't consider themselves homeless.
Have you met a gypsy?
Have I met a gypsy? Yes, actually. I have a friend who's a gypsy.
Talk to her about it.
Simon.
Him.
Yeah.
Talk to him about it. He'll tell you. It's a very interesting story.
Yes. Yeah. His mother's apparently a fascinating woman. Yeah.
And I'm still looking for somebody. I'm going to put this out there. I haven't said it to you guys before, but I'm still looking for anybody who is gypsy willing to speak the native tongue on stream for me so that I can hear it.
Wow.
I want to hear it.
Interesting.
The gypsy language is the only language that is discombobulated and not connected to one language. It
Interesting.
is. It's one of the most amazing freaking languages there are, and it's going extinct. People are forgetting the language, so I'd like to be able to get it on stream.
Wow, that would be interesting to have your own copy. Yep. That would be interesting, Roger.
Have somebody come on. And
I don't think that Simon can, and I'm not sure if his mother can, but I can ask them.
Have a conversation with them. Even you don't have to do it with a stream. Just something that you could actually learn about, because these are interesting people, and they've been given a bad name. They really have.
There is a group in it's really interesting. There's a group in New Zealand who consider themselves to be gypsies. They are not necessarily genetic gypsies. They're more just they have chosen a very sort of I don't know what you would call it. It's sort of like a traveling commune almost. The people all look after each other. They all go from place to place to do fairs. They live on what they make. They don't have jobs, and they just sort of travel up and down the islands here doing fairs and things. And people hate them. It's so fascinating to me. They're just different. They choose to be people who travel from fair to fair and town to town, and because they're always traveling, they don't run a home.
Yeah, it's pretty
and
interesting.
People can't bear it because they've just chosen to be different.
They still run their home. They don't run.
They travel. They travel in house. What do you call them? Not houseboats because it's on the land. It's camper vans.
Yeah.
They all have camper vans and converted buses.
You're describing.
Sorry.
You're describing gypsies to me. Everything that you
That's
just
exactly
said.
it. It's all the gypsy. It's all the gypsy lifestyle, except that they're not one racial group. They're just anybody who chooses to join. Yeah.
But there are
haters.
actual racial groups that are known as gypsy or are gypsy, the original users.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's in Europe, though, isn't it? Gypsies are absolutely
that's
European.
Europe, that's
Now,
Romanians,
let me also
Let me
also set that clear on there. There are gypsies in your region, Bob Dub. It's just they don't know for sure if they're gypsies or not. Like
Right.
they
Yes.
were displaced is the best way of
Yes.
saying it. Like the English,
people,
those horrible English,
the
they
way
just
of looking at it.
those horrible English people just freaking threw them on boats and said, you know what, you're gonna go to freaking
Dude.
Australia and you're gonna go to New Zealand. We don't want your stuff here no more.
Yeah. That's what the
We
British
have that
did.
problem with England and the Eastern Europeans coming over by France at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
We
Yes,
have exactly
yes,
that problem,
indeed.
please.
Yep. It's and you know the thing that I said when we first started this on this season, I told you I think that people messed up when they said that the United States was the melting pot, because it's not true. England is actually the melting pot.
I don't know.
England is very interesting because it's a melting pot, but the people don't want to join with each other.
Well,
They're
don't.
like a melting pot, but they're all not melting.
They don't want to melt. They
don't want.
It's like all these new people come to their country and they just freaking get so pissed off about it.
Yeah.
They're horrible people.
Absolutely.
I'm telling you, they really
British.
are. English, mostly.
English.
If you say
Just the
British,
English.
if you say the British, you're talking about Ireland and Scotland too.
And Scotland and Welsh.
Yeah,
Mm.
the
And
Welsh.
the Welsh.
Actually,
I'm
actually,
talking
no,
about just
not
the
Ireland,
English.
not Northern Ireland. Remember, the actual title of this union is the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
Northern Ireland, right.
You know,
Southern Ireland is part of...
you know why?
It's Republic of Ireland, isn't it?
You know why
Ah.
Northern Ireland is so important, though, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's where William III sent all the Orangemen, isn't it?
No, it's York.
Mm.
York
Yeah.
is a very important.
That's
It's a very important city. That's where a lot of the.
Well, it was England's capital was at one point.
York is actually the first place that the Vikings colonized too. They built frickin'
Okay.
York, and they also built there's islands off the top of Scotland where they made a port there, and I forgot the name
It was
of it.
Skye and that island where the Cecil got massacred. Lundy's Island.
Might be, yeah. It's a very interesting story on that, but like the Vikings actually colonized that area, and York was where, like, that's where the Vikings and frickin' the Irish started frickin' actually learning about each other. And like when they say the Irish are frickin' what is it? They're conniving. They're real sneaky. The reason why is because the Vikings didn't understand that frickin' way. They're cunning. They were the cunning. You know how you've always heard people refer to Irish as the cunning. They were cunning. They were cunning. They were cunning to the frickin' to the Vikings, and the Vikings couldn't understand that way of life. Whereas on the opposite spectrum, the Irish didn't like the Vikings either, because they were all brute. So that's where everything started. That was where it happened. That's why that's why the English are all so fucked up.
So the English aren't actually fucked up, Roger.
They aren't.
We're actually just the people who were the most successful.
Well, you're not really English.
And
you're New Zealand and South.
I'm not even
Well,
New Zealand.
yeah, but
You're not New Zealand. You're from South.
Africa.
You're from Rhodesia.
Rhodesia, which was a British colony. So I'm a colonial. I'm the hated.
No, you're the loved.
British, wasn't it? Was the Boer, Dutch and such.
Yes, the Boer War was. That's another cool freaking subject that we need to talk about sometime.
The Boer War was
Yeah.
South African,
Right.
and it's the precursor to the First World War. The
Mhm.
Boer War was sort of like the opening skirmishes almost,
Mhm.
because the British Army had been massively successful in India and Asia. And now the British had this huge army with nobody to fight with.
Mhm.
Yeah, wasn't the Boer War the first time we used an automated gun, the Maxim gun?
Mhm.
All sorts of firsts there.
Well, you had to fight against the Zulu, and you have to understand the Zulu freaking came at you. The Zulu came at you with thousands and thousands of freaking
Maxim guns coming from Germany were nothing much used during the 18th, 19th. It would have
had to come from
War I, really. Or up to the Boer War.
It would have had to come from them because you couldn't get, well, actually, it was South Africa.
Yeah, but
nope, they couldn't get support from the United States.
In South Africa, we didn't need support from the United States.
No, understand with the Boer Wars.
Technically, only formed less than 10 years.
With the Boer Wars, man, freaking England. It was the colonists who fought that war, dude. England didn't freaking have very much influence on that war at all. They were the one. It was the colonists. It was the colonists. It was the colonists.
The English.
No, you guys, the colonists.
It was Kitchener.
It was like from the whole situation, they ended up freaking being trapped down there, having to fend for themselves.
Do you know that there were more Boer soldiers in prisoner of war camps than there were in the Boer army?
Yeah, and conditions got extremely bad, even worse than places like Anderson prison in the Union during the American Civil War.
We need to talk about
the worst place. Think of Codex.
You hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Yeah.
We do need to talk about that. That's actually freaking gonna. That needs
the
to be.
Boer War.
Yeah.
My mother's written a couple of books on the Boer War.
Good. Good. That means you're very well versed in it.
Not very well versed.
From what sort of precision? Just a history before.
Well, it's kind of it's complicated. So my mother is an Afrikaans is an Afrikaans woman, descendant of a German father and an Afrikaans mother, and she married my dad, who was a British colonialist in Rhodesia. So there's always been the Boer War in my family. It's never been over. And so she's written, so she's now 85 or something. And this is the first time in her life that she's actually sort of really put her feelings about the British down on paper. So it's kind of interesting for me from a personal point of view, watching this sort of people historically trying to bury the hatchet and get on with each other. But her story is set in the Boer War, but they're love stories aimed at sort of teenagers, I suppose, to try and educate them in history while hooking them into a story.
Okay, now
so that's where she's coming from.
Do a plug for your mom. Tell what the names of the books are for.
No, that's very sweet of you.
Have they been published?
Have they been published?
Yes, they're available on Amazon.
What's the name?
Her name is Elizabeth Godwin, the author's name, Elizabeth Godwin. Liz Godwin, actually. Liz Godwin. And the first book is called Eagle's Cry. And the second book is called Caught in the Crossfire.
Okay.
The first book is more about how the Boer organized themselves. It's set in a horse ranch. And so it talks about how the commandos had their own horses and how they bred the horses and how there was no leader of the army. the Boer just took their horse and their backpacks and they went to defend their country. There was no leader. And then the second book is fascinating look at the development of medicine during the Boer War, and how all these huge big names like Rudyard Kipling and Arthur Conan Doyle and all these fascinating people from Britain were there during the Boer War, documenting this stuff, and how the Boers were not supported by any government in the world,
Right.
but people like you and me knew that what was happening, particularly Germans, knew that what was happening to the Boer were wrong. And so they just packed up their bags and went out to South Africa and volunteered with the Boer army to try and stand up to the British, who were horrendous, who were ploughing salt into the fields and burning homesteads. But not the British, okay? These particular generals who were horrendous generals.
Mm-hmm.
So sorry, that's a long.
The Dutch or the Germans, both Dutch and Germans used very guerrilla tactics.
Well, they had to see. That's what I was trying. That's what I was trying to get at with the Boers, though. Okay, so the Boers, before that even happened, okay, they had just freaking gotten over dealing with the Zulu tribes, all right, within that region. And then and then after they did that, freaking, they had to fight against the British, and the British were freaking, they had no support, like Bob Dub said, from any country worldwide. Nobody would touch them.
Nobody would touch them. Nobody wanted to be treated badly by the British Army.
Right.
Because when you're a conquering army because you are more savage and more brutal than any other army. And so nobody wanted to face that army. They were pretty good.
Well, the English Navy ended up freaking overwhelming the Spanish Armada, so and their navy wasn't beaten until freaking the War of 1812, when the United States built the largest navy in the world, and a lot of people aren't aware of that. And like after the Revolutionary War that we had here, there was also a naval war that took place with the English after that nobody knew about.
And a very interesting and contemporary thing at the moment that's being talked about in New Zealand is whether America is going to retain dominance of the seas with this conflict in with the Yemeni and the pirates from Somalia and the war and everything happening there, because we in New Zealand, we rely on trade to stay alive. And so our ships go up.
There's international treaties on things like that.
Not piracy.
It's just interesting that America has maintained.
Taiwan is a.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Taiwan is a problem at the moment because of China inclusion into the Pacific.
Huge.
Okay, now don't.
Well, that's one of the things that's being talked about, is that what happens if America loses the sovereignties of the seas? Does that mean that the Chinese army the Navy just puts to sea?
No, you got.
Sorry.
We've been having this conversation about freaking these countries and what's really going on, and I mentioned first about the Marshall Islands. Okay, don't be fooled by what you're hearing when it comes to Taiwan. No, Taiwan, first of all, is there's a lot of money invested into Taiwan from Australia, and Australia freaking doesn't want to lose that investment. China has already moved into Hong Kong and pretty much just Shanghaied everybody. Everything that belonged to these freaking huge companies now belongs to the government of China. and Australia doesn't want that to happen. You see what I mean? So they're putting out a lot of propaganda right now to frickin' make you think that this is such a big deal when in reality it's not. It's just the fact that Australia doesn't want to lose their money.
But for the last, I don't know, 10, 15 years, Australia and Canada has been extremely nice to China.
Well, they've been really nice to Taiwan too. You know how much money is invested in Taiwan from those countries? So they want you to believe that there's this huge horrible thing going to happen if frickin' China takes Taiwan, and the only reason why they're saying that is that they don't want to lose that money.
But remember, Americans have got it's still within living memory of Pearl Harbor. There must be people out there that still are alive now that can remember Pearl Harbor.
Well, I think
not the American country, but
I think these countries should pay their leases. You know what I mean? China wouldn't have had to step in and take Hong Kong back if frickin' these countries didn't or would have kept their obligation and paid their lease. Like they weren't allowed. They weren't.
Still got a fairly. There was a couple of years ago. There was a independence, a very strong independence movement in Hong Kong.
They're still talking about it. They're still talking about it, though. I mean, it's not like it's happening. You know what I mean? Like, that's the reason why they're.
No, it's not going to happen, but they are holding on to certain rights in Hong Kong.
You know, it'd be nice if they could pull it off, but you know what I'm getting at, right? It's not happening. Like, and freaking the thing of it is these countries know what the rules are. That's why freaking they were there in the first place. They had to pay a fee to freaking China, and they didn't do it. They didn't stick with their obligations.
Well, it was only a 99 lease. It was only a 99-year lease.
Right.
Yeah.
And the Chinese did say that they didn't want to renew the lease.
Right.
So they gave quite a few decades notice. Yeah.
You know, and that's what I'm saying. These people aren't taking that into consideration. No. They need to freaking be mindful of that stuff. Now, Taiwan, I'm not sure if they've got a lease or not, but...
No,
Taiwan is a protectorate of the US, isn't it? It's technically the US Commonwealth.
Yeah. Well, China believes that it's part of them. From China's point of view, Taiwan is one of their protectorates, their countries. So it's only the West who disagrees with China. And China says, well, look, just stay out of our business. And the West says, no, why would we do that? We'll tell you what to think. And the Chinese don't know why. Why are you going to tell us what to think, Britain? And so Britain says, well, opium. And then the Chinese say, we hate you. And it's all over. So the history is long and dark.
See, and that brings us to paper wars. We have to discuss paper wars in frickin' the Southeast Asia and things of that nature eventually sometime too, and what was really taking place with the Opium Wars.
That's a very interesting story too, and so much ill will there.
Yeah.
Everybody down in this corner of the world is talking about war with China.
It's amazing.
Everybody down here is saying that the people down here believe that the Western world, Europe, Britain and America are driving us into a war with China. And there's a lot of anti-American sentiment building up as a result of this belief that America's trying to drive us into a war with China.
Well,
it's very interesting if you talk to some of the people.
I think that is true, but I also think that it's a lot closer to home than what you guys believe, because there's Australia there too. And it's like I said,
well, you see,
Australia has a lot invested. You know, they're terrified.
Australia's the difficult thing because, Australians, man, as you said, they were sent out there as convicts.
New Zealand has their problems.
Well, they've got a lot of money invested in Taiwan. I mean, they've got insane amounts of money invested in Taiwan.
Insane. And honor, I think. It's sort of a matter of our way is best. And we don't want you communists coming in here and messing everything up, because we know how to run a country. So, it's centuries old, the conflict, obviously.
See, we got some good colonial stuff right there. And you were able to tell us some cool stuff about your mom, which is awesome. And
thank you. That
nice
was to talk about her. Yeah.
That was really, really cool. I mean, I did not know that your mom was that cool. I knew that she thought freaking Mark was a cutie pie.
Yeah. Yes, my mom gives, of all my new friends I have, my mom gives Mark the stamp of approval.
Yeah. I let everybody know that every chance I get. I let them know that Bob Dub's mom thinks Mark is the Peachy Keen of Peachy Keen.
Well, we don't know
dreaming.
Exactly what my mum does think, because remember that a lot of the things that I showed her were very strange icons. I mean, avatars, and yeah. So it might have just been that my mum was responding to Mark's elegant suit.
Yes.
Maybe.
So if be careful. Be careful what you attribute to my mother. She is 86.
Yes. Now that we've got Mark blushing a little bit. So what's your point here now, Mark? What do you think of all this that we've been talking about from your English standpoint?
I think
you've got national service, Mark.
Technically, well, maybe if the legislation goes through, but technically it would be voluntary national service. So I don't know how that works. Conscription, but voluntary.
Yes, absolutely. Here's your call-up papers. You will respond voluntarily.
It sounds like paying taxes.
Yes. My dad used to say when he was in the army, if ever the sergeant major asks for a volunteer, just very quietly step back one pace.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And then the idiot that doesn't step back will be the volunteer. That's how you separate the men from the boys right there, buddy.
Boys. Yeah. So sorry, I interrupted you with bringing up the military service. You were meant to be answering Roger's much more sensible question.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I've said it was full time. I don't know.
He's not much for thoughts right now. He's actually been up for a really long time, so like he's.
Yeah. Today's been a bit of a weird one.
So, are you satisfied with what we've done today so far, guys? Because like we can go ahead and we've finished my talking points. If you don't have anything, then because it's at like 1 hour and 28 minutes.
I think it's been an awesome talk.
I really do too. I think this has been amazing, and I'm real serious. I think freaking that what you shared there about your mom's book and everything was amazing. That was cool.
Oh, thanks. Thank you. Yeah, it's actually a very sweet story. If you do know anybody who doesn't know anything about the Boer War and it's wants an entry level, I can recommend them as very lovely, classy little stories that are based completely in fact.
All right. So, do a plug on your channels for us.
Oh, my channels. Everything's up in the air at my channels. All I can say at the moment is that I'm Bob Dub and I can be found on minds.com. Everything else I'm working out. I'm in just a big process of reorganization.
Okay.
But bobdubonminds.com has not changed.
Okay. So,
Thank you, Roger.
bobdubonminds.com. What about you, Mark?
And I think, mine's is probably the best place. So, Medworthy, so minds.com/Medworthy.
Okay. And I'm Roger Hanson on minds.com. I'm also on, well, no, I guess minds.com is the only social network I'm on. You can check me out on freaking Skype. I always keep forgetting to mention Skype, even though we've been using it for how long now? I'm Roger Hanson on Skype if you want to check me out there. I am Roger Hanson and infamous OG1973 on Discord. That's why Bob Dub always calls me OG. Just so you guys know. And
very easy name to remember.
I did that on purpose,
Yeah.
because I'm like the coolest of the cool.
You are, Roger. That's
Like-
why I pick on that name, because that is a name that typifies you completely.
Roger, infamous OG. I'm the infamous OG 1973. Just remember that. Debut 7 has nothing on me, dude. Nothing. Like, you know what I mean?
And you're on D Live now, aren't you, Roger,
Yeah.
as of today?
Well, it's been 3 days now,
three.
I think. Yeah, 3 days now. I really don't find a real opportunity there. Don't get, because it kind of, it's like a mutated version of like Minds/X
Oh,
with like a combination of freaking Odyssey blended in with freaking Twitch.
Interesting. Actually, you know where I am starting? Where I am starting somewhere where I do think that is lovely, is on Mint Me.
Yeah, that is good. That's a
really cute little community there, and there's so many interesting people. It's really small, it's really exclusive, there's a lot of great content, there's people building stuff, there's opportunities to learn how to trade, there's opportunities to be able to learn about crypto communities and different projects that can be made using Web3 technologies. So that's probably actually something I would recommend at the moment, talking about all these new different sites.
Yeah, no, I should
I
probably
haven't
mention
had to
that.
look at them for a couple of years now. Mine's getting when committed to them. 4 or 5 years ago.
I should start mentioning it too, because I'm actually on Mint Me. I've got the WoW coin and stuff, so.
Yes. Oh, I think I bought some WoW coins yesterday, Roger. You should go check them out and see if I did. I was trying to. That was my aim.
Well,
I hope I didn't sell some.
for me, man, I'll take what I can get, because like I've been noticing it's really, I mean, when you set up those coins, those are your coins, but you've really got to push them. It's your responsibility to sell them, you know.
Absolutely.
What I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
I do
Well,
appreciate that.
Yeah, it's very interesting learning the ins and outs of it, I think. I don't really have much to say at the moment, except that I'm making a lot of mistakes in trying to figure it out.
I'll go on there and check my coins out, and freaking I know that I bought some years. I'll buy some more.
Okay, that's cool. Thank you.
Try
Well,
to-
I think that your price went up yesterday.
Did it?
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
That would be cool.
I know that I'm making more money than Bill Altman.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, my coin's
Out of
worth
your
more.
tokens.
My coin's worth more than the Minds tokens. I was comparing them.
You see, this is the fun thing, is to be able to work it yourself and not watch somebody else work it and say, oh, well, I wouldn't have done that. To actually, like, I'm doing this. It's
and you know
such
what?
a power and
You know
a
what's
freedom.
the coolest part about it is like freaking.
Yeah.
I'm better than Bill Altman, dude. That's
in
just
every single way.
that's just so cool, man. You know, like fucking dude, I'm
That's
outdoing
so
you. Like
interesting.
your freaking coin isn't worth shit, dude.
Isn't that the whole, like, you see, that's what Elon Musk says. Elon Musk says if you want to be better than the other person, you got to work harder than the other person. If the other guy's working a 40-hour week and you want to be twice as good as him, you have to put in an 80-hour week.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what anarchy is, you see. Anarchy is
remember
what?
the old 19th century slogan, smarter, work smarter, not harder.
Nobody likes a cab driver. You ever
Why
notice that?
not?
Nobody
What?
ever.
Because he's not.
He gets the quick, easy money, and he treats people like shit.
Huh.
You ever notice that? Like
Okay.
there. I mean, have you ever gotten along with a cab driver?
Yeah,
Not so much.
Oh.
The last cab driver I had was a Chinese guy who gave me this long lecture all the way to the airport on why white people were so evil, capitalistic. I didn't take a taxi again since then. That was an Uber.
I think that's where we can just go ahead and end our stream. I think that's so cool. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes,
so
it was a really, really great show. Thank you very much indeed, Roger. Thank you so much. It is so good that you have these conversations. It's such a good place to come. So thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
thank you
And
guys.
Mark too. It's great chatting with you.
Thank
And
you.
catching up on where Britain is these days.
And make sure everybody understands just how bad they are over there. Like, they're rotten people, dude. Freaking, I just, I love.
You're lovely people, really.
Oh, the world hates
Really.
us, Mark.
Some of us.
Those Brits.
We just have to be brave. We just have to be brave and understand they're jealous of us. It's okay.
Yeah. Envious of us.
So with that said, we are going to end this stream. You guys, thanks for stopping in and being a part of the stream, and we will be back next week, hopefully, if we don't get kicked off and good stuff like that. So, God bless the Queen, I guess, and her
King.
Yeah.
well, the
Or
King.
the king.
Yeah, or the King. And I will talk to you guys later.